Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's class on Mishna and Berurah. We are currently live, and we are going to give this a shot. I'm not doing any real testing of this, but it should work, hopefully. And hopefully also we'll record the class. So we'll see how it goes. We will try it. It took a while to get it to play nice in the sandbox. So anyway, the only thing that's unfortunate is because of the way YouTube works is I can't have. I used to have the Safer open in front of me through Safaria, so you're going to see me looking down more because I'm trying to adjust having the Safer here in front of me and also looking straight ahead. So you're going to see me looking down a little bit more as opposed to having it straight ahead of me. But I digress. We're going to begin with learning the laws of Birchas Torah now. So this is actually another one of the morning blessings that you'll say first thing in the morning. And we're going to talk about when you use it, what you use it for, etc., etc. So the first thing we know about it is Birchas Torah is really important because you're basically taking on the onus of learning Torah and understand that you have to learn it pretty much immediately first thing in the morning. And it's actually a dispute as to whether this blessing is a rabbinic, like all other blessings are, or if it's actually mandated by the Torah. And the only difference is whether or not if you forgot to say it, whether you have to say it again. So, therefore, if you're not sure if you said it, you shouldn't say it again, and especially after you've already said all of your Shacharis prayers. You shouldn't say it again because many people which we'll learn about later on, will say that the Ahava Rabbah prayer includes so many, that the blessing right before you recite the Shema in the morning includes so many of the topics covered in Birchas Torah that you don't need to repeat it. And what it also means is that since you're saying a blessing on it, it's like for food you shouldn't eat, and also saying is that you shouldn't start learning Torah until after you've recited the blessing on the Torah. Okay, so that's the main thing. You should always make sure that you give some praise to Hashem for giving you the Torah. Okay, the blessing on the Torah, or in the second sif over here, you should recite it whether you're learning Torah verses themselves, whether you're learning Mishnah verses, or whether you're learning Gemara, or even Midrash. Okay, so that's another important thing over there. Not only is it reciting it, the next halacha is that not only reciting words of Torah, but one should also recite the Birchas Torah before writing any words of Torah. And the reason why is because even though you haven't actually done something with it like you normally would, the point is that you should be focusing on the recitation of the words themselves, meaning that you're still expelling that, you're still having them come from your body, you're still benefiting from the Torah. So therefore you should do that. The other approach is that sometimes as you're writing you start to say the words of Torah yourself, and so therefore if you're writing a verse in a letter, or you're writing works, especially if you're writing Chidushei Torah or anything else that is totally involved in Torah, same thing. That you should actually expressly say it every single time, which is why we have that little recitation right after Birchas Torah. So that way, if you just want to go into learning quietly, you don't have to worry about saying it or not. This way, you've definitely said something and thought something. I'm just checking over here. Okay, looks like we're still okay with the broadcast. All right, thank you, everyone. So that's why we have the whole recitation of those 3 paragraphs afterwards, so that way you don't have to worry about it. You recite verses from the Torah, you recite a Mishnah, and you recite some Talmud. The interesting thing about the thing that we quote, after the Berurah Torah, is that that's not actual Talmud. It's sort of a summary of what the Talmud actually says. The Talmud actually says, are these the only things that you say? We learn the Mishnah in Peah. These are the things that have no measure. And Peah, Habikurim, Harayon, we list all these things. These mitzvahs that have really no actual measure to them. And then the paragraph after that is just a short restatement of what the Talmud asks back and forth. Are these really the only things? Is that all that there is? There's also this. What about this? We don't actually say that. We just skip all that and simply quote the final version of the second paragraph as the Talmud understands it, not the actual words of Talmud. What about thinking about Torah? Okay, you can think about Torah all you want without actually reciting the bracha. It doesn't count. Okay, and you can also, if someone asks you a halakhic question, you could say yes or no without having to explain it, without having recited Berurah Torah. So if someone catches you first thing in the morning, or as you like to joke around, if someone wakes up in the middle of the night with questions about things like burial or other emergencies, and you've been sleeping, and you haven't recited Berurah Torah, you could go ahead and give them the answers without explaining the reasons. Explaining the reasons would be like learning Torah, or you benefit from Torah, and so that would be okay. Okay, so the basic thing is to say, if someone says, hey, I think you should pay me $10, whatever it is, those type of things are okay. However, one shouldn't rely on this for a long-term solution. It's just like a first thing in the morning type of leniency. The idea is to not let it get out of hand with thinking about it, because you might start to talk about it. So you should be really, really careful to recite Berurah Torah first. Okay, so what is the version of Berurah Torah? It's Asher Kiddushanu Mitzvosav Etzivanu La'asok B'divrei Torah. Okay, and even a convert can say the Lachar Banu, which is the second part of it. And they say, so the verses are La'asok B'divrei Torah V'har Ibna Hashem Elokeinu Es Divrei Sorasecha Es Divrei Sorasecha, and so on and so forth. And then the second bracha is Asher Lachar Banu. All that are all okay. And if you notice in some versions of it, there's a question of how many times you mention your descendants. My descendants and my later descendants. So some people say it's nice to say the extra one, some people take it out. Okay. So those are all good things. Another good thing that's also nice to say in the morning around this time is to also have in mind, parents should have in mind to recite for their children, they should also be learning Torah. Okay, and the second paragraph over here, the Shulchan Aruch says should be with a vav, because the paragraph is connected to the actual blessing itself. And the Ramah says we use that without a vav. So if you look in the Sidur itself, that many versions don't have the vav, and many do. So it's the idea is to say that it's one long bracha. So some people say that it's not, and so we basically say, even though the Ramah says it's not, we say it is. Meaning our final decision is to say it Bahar Ibna, and then therefore you should keep. If you hear somebody say the blessing, you should only answer Amen after they finish the whole blessing. Okay? So most people don't say a bracha after that point. The only time you would really rely on that is if you have someone fulfilling your obligation, like on the night of Shavuos, and then you would say it after the end of the first paragraph. So it would read the following way, just to explain exactly what we're talking about. So the proper nusach would be Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And then this is the next question that we're dealing with over here, which is Ha'arev na. Whoops, 1 second. Lost my place over here. V'ha'arev na Hashem Elokeinu es divrei sorasecha b'finu u'v'fi amacha beis Yisrael. Ani anachnu v'tzeh etza'enu v'tzeh etza'ei amacha beis Yisrael kulanu yuda eshemecha v'lei sorasecha lishma baruch atah Hashem hamalamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Then you answer Amen, and that is the second bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'nasan lanu es torasai. Baruch atah Hashem nosein ha'torah. You say Amen again, and then you go into the Yivarechas, the El Davrim she'en shur, right? And the El Davrim she'anam ochel per Hashem mazeh. The second paragraph is just a restatement. So that's what we're talking about. So you shouldn't break up. You shouldn't put a break in between, even though the Ramah says not like that. That's our minhag is not that way. Okay. So we mentioned earlier that if you aren't sure whether you said Berurah Torah, that you can make it up later on. So the Shulchan Aruch says over here that the bracha of Ahavas Olam exempts you from that. If you learn Torah immediately afterwards, that'll break. He says Ahavas Olam because he's Sephardi, but for those who recite Ashkenazi practice, it's Ahava Rabba Avtanu. Okay, and so the idea is that whether you say it in the morning or in the evening, the idea is that blessing includes a lot of these same topics, that Hashem was so kind enough to give us the Torah that we should thank Him for giving it to us. And we're going to learn later on that again, like going to sleep is also a big break to not recite Berurah Torah. So that's why when you want to use, if you aren't sure whether you recited the blessing of Berurah Torah, if you are definitely reciting the Shema now, when you are going to, if you're diving Nusach Sfard or Nusach Sfaradi or Edut Mizach, you can say Ahavat Olam, and if you're doing Ashkenaz, you can do Ahava Rabba Avtanu. So in order to keep in mind the blessing of the Torah, and you also are going to fulfill a lot of obligations that we'll talk about in a minute, that require you to have in mind that these words are going to take the place of the separate blessing of the Torah. Okay? And we'll discuss it more in a little bit. So you have to learn immediately afterwards, we said. So why? Because the blessings of the Shema don't actually fulfill the obligation, because the blessings were made for the Shema. So you have to make an actual movement. I feel like I'm describing. I'm describing the new rules for receptions in football. You have to make a Torah learning movement. For those who aren't familiar, the NFL changed the rules about catching football. So catching football wasn't enough. So that because it's not just learning Torah. You can't just learn Torah. You have to make a learning Torah move. otherwise you fumbled your Berurah Torah. So you have to then finish off davening. You have to go and learn something afterwards. So there's plenty of things you can learn after davening, after you finish the whole thing. So having davening there isn't considered a hefsek. We thought this is discussed numerous times in halacha, such as when we say you're not allowed to make an interruption between the blessing of the shofar and the other tekiah shofar, but davening isn't considered a hefsek. It's not considered a break. So we finish davening, and then you can go recite the 10 Commandments. You can go recite the story of the Man. You can go learn the 6 constant mythos that the Ramban talks about. You can go learn the Yud Gimel Ikrim of the Rambam, the 13 Principles of Faith by Maimonides. Learn all these little things. You can learn little sections of Talmud, learn little sections of Mishna afterwards as well. There's all types of options, but you don't want to take a break afterwards. Okay? As long as you have in mind to do it for learning. And you should follow the same pattern as beforehand. You should learn a little bit of Torah verses, a little bit of Mishnah, and a little bit of Talmud. Okay, and then you don't have to make another blessing all day long. Okay, we're in Halacha Ches now. So he drives home this idea that you should definitely say Berurah Torah much earlier in the morning, and we solve this problem because Kriyat Shema, some people don't consider that to be learning Torah, it's a prayer. It's a prayer that Hashem, we understand that you want us to love you and recognize you as the one and only. So therefore, you shouldn't be saying the verses of the Shema to fulfill your requirement for Berachos Torah. Okay, and therefore you should say it well before Ahavas Olam or Ahavah Rabbah in our case, and say the little paragraphs with it. Some people say, let's say Yesh Omrim. That's like great. Let me translate this for you. Yesh Omrim. Some people say that if you don't say those few paragraphs afterwards, then the blessing doesn't have anything to fall back on. Doesn't apply to anything. It's like saying Kiddush without a cup of wine. It's like saying a shahakol without holding a piece of candy. It's like saying mazonos without having a cupcake. So it's the same idea. So that's why we put the priestly blessing right afterwards, and the Mishna of Peah and the Talmud of Peah are all there to fulfill the obligation. And the reason why it seems to apply all day long is because we say that the learning that we do applies throughout the day, and we think about the learning all day long, and we probably will say something that's learning involved. So therefore, one never really completely deviates their attention from it. Excuse me. Okay, and you don't have to make a new Berachos Torah when you get up and go to work and come back, because you're probably thinking about something or learning something, or you open up a class, or you have a question. Things happen all day long, so you're constantly thinking about it. As I say in Yiddish, you're a rein. You're constantly involved in it. Even though we say that that's the case, so nonetheless you should still make sure that you recite those verses immediately afterwards, so you don't run into the problem that we're describing. Okay, so the next halacha is what is considered a break in the middle of Berachos Torah. So if you know you're not going to come back to learn, you're just going to go to work all day, that's not a break, okay? And if you're going to take a little nap, that's okay. Even going to the bathhouse or swimming, that's not considered a break. This is considered normal parts of your day. You know you're going to come back to engage in learning, okay? So you don't have to actually make a statement saying I'm going to come back to do that. However, some people say that you may have to have a regular seder of learning. So if we're saying that you're going to go do something else, and you don't have to say another blessing, it's because you know you're going to come back to this other fixed time period. So that's what some people say. However, the custom is not to do that. And when we say falling asleep during the day, again, it's a small nap or taking a short shower. With that, we're saying that that's okay. However, some people disagree and say that going to the shower is a problem, but that's not the custom. Now, a full night's sleep is basically enough to say, I have to say new blessing on the Torah the next day, because you're going to talk about learning all day long, and you may be involved, and you may be this, and maybe that. But if you go to bed, you've gone to bed. Okay? So that's what some people say. The Shulchan Aruch says that the minhag is to never consider a big long shluch to be a break requiring your Berachos Torah again. Okay, so we basically say that you can do that. So even take a big long sleep in the middle of the day, even though we just mentioned previously that wasn't the case. Some people say, if you say the Berachos Torah and again, some people say it's a blessing, but we don't do that. We say it's a bracha levatal. It's a wasted bracha. Do you need to say another Berachos Torah at night? Because usually we say the night follows the day. So, but I'm still awake and I want to learn tonight. Do I have to say a new Berachos Torah at night? The answer is no. In this case, the blessing follows the day. It follows the whole length of time of your awake. So if you're going to learn at night, you don't have to make another Berachos Torah at night, even though it's a different day. And we're basically saying Berachos Torah follows you until you get a full night's sleep. So, if you do go to sleep, let's say it's like now, where you're going to sleep, it's gonna, before nightfall, and then you wake up in the middle of the night, then you have to make another Birchas Torah. Because the Birchas Torah is only interrupted by your sleep for that evening. So what we said before about it not being a break, we were still saying that if you have called it a day, the next day you're going to make a new bracha, especially if most people say that it's only a Birchas Hoda'ah, it's only a blessing, praising Hashem for it. So there's no real definition of what's considered a break, except for the fact that every day we want to praise Hashem for this blessing. So therefore, if you take a long sleep at the beginning of the night and wake up in the middle of the night, let's say, if you go to sleep at 6 and wake up at 1, right? Because it's 7 hours of sleep. So you still have to say Birchas Torah at the time of night, even if you're going to be up from 1 until sunrise. But some people say you don't have to do that. However, the custom is that we do recite Birchas Torah in such a situation. Now, let's say you're going to get up really early. So let's say, like right now, sunrise is kind of late where I am at. So right now, sunrise is moved down to 7:20. But let's say you get up at 6. If you have a morning call, it starts at 6 a.m. So you need to say Birchas Torah when you get up, right? Well, if you were learning last night too. So one should still say it. And then when you leave shul, you don't have to recite it again. Because again, it's going to follow your own day schedule. Even if you haven't recited all the other blessings yet. So, meaning you're going to recite the other morning blessings like you learned about last week. And you're going to recite some of the other things like the continual offering, the Tamim offering. But those things you should wait to recite them until the day has actually begun, which would be called Alos HaShachar. We learned about that in other classes. And if you're going to learn in the middle of the night, you should also wash your hands. We talked about this a few Siman ago. If you don't have water with you immediately, then you won't say that blessing. You'd say the blessing of Alan Tasadayim later on when you get water. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Okay, let's see. What else can I put over here? Let's say you woke up in the middle of the night and then fall back asleep again. Since you woke up and you're ready for your day, you take a short nap. Even though it's still nighttime, you don't have to repeat Birchas Torah again. And let's see. Yeah, and you can say Birchas Torah at night. You should still wait to say a lot of these morning blessings until after the light has come up, because since the first one is talking about the rooster delineating the difference between day and night, you should at the very least wait for earlier points on that. Okay, and then all the other halacha things related to the continual offering, you should learn that after the daylight has risen. One other important thing is women should recite Birchas Torah, because the Mishna Berurah explains, not in the Mishna Berurah itself, but in the Biur Halakha, in the longer, more involved version, he says that women are exempt from learning Torah. That's a positive mitzvah that is time bound. Mitzvah aseh shehazman garma. However, women do have to learn halachas that apply to themselves. And with that being true, therefore, one should go ahead and recite. Women should also go ahead and recite Birchas Torah and not wait for that. Okay, do we have any questions on that? I think we can go ahead and plop questions into the chat. Okay, so if we don't have any questions on any of that, we got through quite a bit today pretty quickly. It's a very long Siman, but not heavily involved. Not a lot to go through. Just a lot of little details here and there. But stay tuned I'll let you know that this whole thing got recorded, and if it did, great. I'm happy for it to work. If nothing else, I will see everyone next time. Take care. Oh, the next class will be Avos Chesed, and the next one on this will be Siman 48. Okay, everyone, take care.